Once again, we're here at the place, and hopefully, you're having a good time. We are. And so, tonight, we're going to be talking about politics and why we need to talk about politics from time to time. And so, let's just let our hair down and see what we can do with the debates that have been happening here lately. And then we want to shift topics from time to time. And so, Bob, welcome to the show.
Well, 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 thank you, and I appreciate your support, and I approve this message. And but I'm not running for anything.
Are you running away from anything?
Um, you know, I don't think so, but sometimes maybe you need to, or maybe there's some things we should make them run away rather than me run away from them.
That's true.
But
I saw a post that you put together a few minutes ago, and you posted it in various groups on Facebook, and it was about meeting with some people trying to provide recovery that is from organized religion. What are your thoughts on that? Where are you going with that?
well, I there's two thoughts on this. One is, for myself, I find it very helpful to talk through these issues. And I find that even though I'm not a pastor anymore, I still care very much about how things are going for people. And I've worked hard to try to be uh, a person who can mentor or be an advisor, and I miss being able to play that role to a certain degree. Although I have no desire to be a controlling kind of person. But I also realize there's a lot of people out there who have abandoned religion, but now they feel abandoned by that, and yet they can't go back. Maybe they still believe something. Maybe they still believe a lot. Maybe they don't believe anything. But they're nonetheless, it's a time of turmoil and of trying to get things back into perspective. And so I'm thinking of opening up both one-on-one and group meetings where I would help people in talking this through and see where what they're going through takes them, and just kind of help to facilitate that process and be kind of a sounding board and an outside perspective. And so that's what I'm thinking of doing.
That's awesome. One of the things that we need so desperately, we need people working with individuals who have theological depression and inner conflict. And I think that atheists and theists alike can do so much good in this particular context. And, one of the things that I'm troubled with is that theological dynamic that is typically in these presidential debates, especially before the debates. So many people are saying, well, I'm a Christian, and they love to hold the Bible and advocate that there's something about that we need that is in this particular culture. And I don't know why so many people are making that a prerequisite, that is, in terms of who they vote for. And so, what are your thoughts on that when someone has to wag a Bible and say, yes, I am a Christian, this is my favorite book, and so on and so on? What are your thoughts there?
Well, in some ways, I'm wondering, just how unfortunate it is that it's possible that they do need to do that if they want to get elected. We, in our country, we have a lot of people who would genuinely feel insecure if they thought that we would have leaders that were not at least under God's favor. And there's a lot of people who really seriously think that way. And I think there's a lot of politicians who are banking on giving to people a sense of security by finding various ways, both overtly and subtly, to indicate, hey, I'm I'm a believing person, and I talk to God, and we're getting along just fine, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
But I thought it was interesting. Richard Dawkins, as hostile as he can be sometimes, can often also say some very, very interesting things and make some. I liked one of the things that he said. He's during the last election. He said, in the United States of America, they're actually thinking about electing a guy president who believes that after he dies, he's going to inherit his own planet. You know, well, when you put it that way, it, I just thought that was particularly funny to say that, because that is kind of odd. Although I'll be honest with you, I don't think that a belief necessarily exempts a person from necessarily having good leadership skills or being able to make certain other good decisions. As president, they have to deal with the here and now regardless. But I wish we could kind of get away from that, but the truth is, I don't think we can, because you see, that is a ploy to manipulate the voter.
It is, but in theological paradigms, there is something that's stated over and over again. What you believe determines your conduct. In other words, if you believe that God is good, that somewhat shapes your conduct. If you believe that He's going to send you to hell, that would maybe suggest something else that is in the way that you would behave. Do you agree with any of those ideas?
Sure. I mean, the part of that is not just that you would believe that God would send someone to hell, but that you believe in this concept of us and them. That you believe in that, and you recognize that there are some who are even eternally so, the enemy.
Right.
And that I think that can cloud your judgment. There are many situations that might be redeemable, but how would you know if you're always prepared to just consider somebody to be the enemy?
So many people are pushing back on Ben Carson, and by the way, welcome, Daryl, to the show. Are you there?
I am. Thank you.
Yeah, let me ask you a question before we go back to the question that I was asking Bob. When you see someone, waving a Bible, saying, I'm a Christian, ding, 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 ding. I mean, does that bother you these days? Because, you have been on this journey. You have come from, being raised in a very, very fundamentalist, in that kind of context, to even moving into an extraordinary type of commune that is for Jesus, waiting until the last days, storing up food and doing all of that kind of thing. And now here you are, you're so different. I'm thankful. So these days, when you see the person waving the Bible and saying, in Jesus' name, amen, and all of that, how does that affect you when it comes to, the person that you might vote for?
Well, I know people that have similar experiences as mine. Some of them have kind of come out of certain things to a certain degree, and yet are still kind of hindered by a lot of what they have been taught and what they had come to believe. Others get really angry, and I don't really much fit in either one of those categories. I think that I'm free for the most part to go where I need to go, to not be, well, let me just come right out and say this. Well, let me just answer your question, I guess would be the best way to do it. A guy waving a Bible. My question for the man, I wouldn't be angry. It wouldn't make me mad. But I would like to ask the question, just what is it about that book that you believe? Where do you stand when it comes to that book? Because there's so many different positions that can be taken and that people take. I mean, are you all about killing all of our enemies? I recently watched some documentaries about Hitler, and he would have made a good Old Testament character. So if you're waving that Bible and you say, I believe in King David and I believe in a lot of the things of the Old Testament, then you're not going to get my vote. And I would like for you to make it public, and maybe there's a lot of others that wouldn't vote for you for that particular reason. But, if you want to take your stand on the issue of love and compassion, and, you find that in the Bible, let's talk about that, but don't wave the Bible. Let's talk about some of the contents and see where you really stand. It's not a flag. It's not something that, really represents anything in particular. It could represent any number of things. So it doesn't really say much to me.
But I guess the greater question would be, so many people have pledged, that is allegiance, not so much to the flag, but to the Bible. And, this is where I want to go at the beginning of the show, that is to ask questions. And Bob, this question goes to you because let me just put together a syllogism that may make the point. And I want you to deal with this because I think that, you have the intellectual capacity to be able to go left and right with this. And I want you to, take that multi-axial genius that you are and see what you can do with it. And so here it goes. If the doctrine of the cross is true, and it is, and if human intellect rejects it, and it does, what does that say about our intellect?
Well, if that were true, then it would say that our intellect is faulty, that it's fallen. I mean, that's what that would it'd say. That somehow we're either not honest or not competent.
Let me see if I can read a particular text that would suggest that. This is why it bothers me that so many people are going to say, the premise of my belief set, namely, or the premise of truth itself in my life would be the Bible. Paul is writing to the church at Corinth, chapter 2. This is verse 14. It says, and I read from the NIV, the translators translated it this way: the man without the Spirit does not accept the things that come from the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness to him, and he cannot understand them because they are spiritually discerned. Well, that would imply that if you're not, quote unquote, if you don't have the Spirit, you cannot accept anything that comes from the Spirit of God because they are foolishness, namely unto you. And so it would take spiritual discernment to understand anything that would, proceed from, namely, the Spirit of God himself in that kind of context. And so the question would be, if someone has, let's say, a belief set that, the Bible is the Word of God, the Bible is inerrant, and this is my worldview, and they are holding up the Bible, telling people, listen, I do believe in separation of church and state. However, my worldview is the manner in which I'm going to, get into this executive office, and this is how I'm going to carry out law with the premise, namely, of my worldview. What are your thoughts on that? In contrast to the syllogism that I just used, because so many people, especially fundamentalists, they believe, if the doctrine of the cross is true, and they keep arguing, yes, it is. And if intellect rejects it, and it does, according to their philosophy/theology,
What they've done is
what does
they
that say
have
about our intellect? And so they're very much against, entertaining the thought that the intellect is primary in our lives. Or
they've
do you follow what I'm saying?
derailed,
Yeah.
they've engaged themselves from the usefulness of cognitive dissonance. They're willing to pursue a direction that they even recognize the intellect might have trouble with. But no mind, that's not a problem. faithful to the word. I got to be honest with you. I think that there is one United States policy now that is horrible. And the only reason we have it is because of how many people really fear God would hate us and work against us if we didn't have this policy, and that is our support of Israel. Now, I'm not for Israel being destroyed. I'm not for any more violence going on at all. But what Israel is doing and the justification for what they're doing and the lack of empathy for who they have done it to, such as the Palestinians, and the Palestinians' very inept and yet also violent, egregiously so, response to it all is still nonetheless a response to an absolutely unethical occupation. And it shouldn't be. So I really think that our support of Israel and our failure to try to really resolve the issues between Palestine and Israel come from that fear of God. A lot of people feel like, no, these Jews, they are the chosen people of God. And if we ever don't take the side of Israel, oh no, are we going to be on God's shit list? And I think there's a lot of people who really believe that, and that affects our national policy, and it blinds us from being honest about taking a genuine nonviolent stance with both Palestine and Israel, and seeing that they both have a non-aggressive policy toward each other, and to be willing to not play certain kinds of ball games with them if they're going to resort to provocative stances, And so
Right.
I really think that also that people originally thought this thing was just going to blow over in months. It started in the late 40s, and they thought it was going to be over real soon. It has cost billions of dollars, millions of lives, and there's no end in sight of it. And I think it's kept alive mostly by United States policy.
In the late 90s, I had a long conversation with Rick Perry. He's one who just bowed out of the presidential race. But when I was talking with him, I was talking to him in particular about these particular passages that I'm getting ready to read. And it frightened me because he had a theological position that was quite strong. And let me read what Paul writes here according to the meta-language of the NIV meta-language. It says, "For the message of the cross is foolishness to those who are perishing, but to us who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and the intelligence of the intelligent I will frustrate." Now, this is something that Rick Perry was, saying, yeah, this is what took place. God has done this. Now, I went on to read this because I was saying, Rick, come on, let's look at this. And it goes on. It says, "Where is the wise man? Where is the scholar? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has God not made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know, namely God." Blah, blah, blah. And so my point is, I think it's wrong for us not to question, namely the theology of theists if they are running for president. Because, Dr. Ben
Well,
Carson, it troubles me, that is, as to what he believes concerning, let's call it the holy text. Because,
right.
he made a valuable point, in my opinion, in that, he was questioning the notion of whether a Muslim could run for president. Now, I realize what the Constitution says. However, I think that possibly what Dr. Carson was suggesting was, if you read Sharia law, if you read this kind of law, and you agree with it, isn't this law, in a sense, a pushback to the Constitution of these United States?
I would think so, and although I think constitutionally Muslims should have every right to run for president,
Certainly.
this this isn't a good time for that. Maybe some other time. As unfair as that may be, the problem with that is going to be one way or another. Even though I think that our elections are kind of bought and paid for, they're bought and paid for at a high price because you really do have to go through the electorate to get there. And there are just some things you can get the electorate to do, some things you can get them to ignore, and some things that you can't. And that doesn't really have anything to do with what they should or shouldn't be doing, So that would be a tough sell, I would think. But things happen.
Yeah, let me ask you what your thoughts are on this. In other words, some people think, these constitutional writers are trying to suggest that we're not to give anyone any kind of religious test, correct?
I believe that the Constitution even exempts religious test. Yes.
Okay, but my point is, what did they mean by religious test? For instance, if it's true that a person holds a particular theological paradigm or belief set, if that belief set is in opposition to the Constitution of the United States, why would we not have a right to know that if we are, to think about or contemplate that person as being our leader of these United States?
I think the way it works is this. Constitutionally, there cannot be a test, but really all that means is that if you try to make it a matter of law and you need to argue it in front of a judge, that's one argument you can't use in front of the judge. But you know what? Nobody's bothering to, and I don't want them to either. We don't stop people at the voting booth and say, now, wait a minute. Are your reasons for casting your vote constitutional or are they radically personal, private, and just wherever? No, I don't know that we can go that far. And so, although officially we don't have a religious test, there does apparently yet remain some sort of a religious test to run for office. Technically, all of the laws, and Greg Bray talked about this when he first came to us, about how there were 7 states or so that have laws on the books that require people to be theists in order for them to run for office. Although those laws are on the books and nobody dares remove them from the books, those laws are null and void because the Constitution says they are. And the Constitution takes when a state accepts the Constitution of the federal government as part of its being a state in the Union, they concede that any laws they have that are contrary to the Constitution are null and void. So, but
yeah, I really have a problem with various things here. For instance, I'm not sure, and I stand to be corrected, and I do need to spend some time looking into this, as to what they meant, that is, at the time that they wrote this. How far, was it target sensitive? Was it time sensitive, and all of that? And that's very important to me. But here's possibly a greater question. Let's pretend, for the sake of argument, that Mr. Hoven was running for president, and we did not know his the premise of his theology. And, here we're going to have someone who's going to make all of these decisions that is for us concerning, even educational paradigms. Would we not get in hot water if we did vote in Mr. Hoven?
There's a part of me that still wants to say, I don't know, but I certainly would be concerned about it. And I would hope that if someone like that was going to try to, say, outlaw evolution and make creationism, young Earth creationism, the law of the land, I think I would be happy to see that there could be some pushback on that. But the reason I think I'm hesitant here is this. Unfortunately, this is what we have. We have a population currently in America that is biased in the direction, and I'm using the word biased not in a negative way, but just in a descriptive way, that when push comes to shove, the general population still wants leaders who seem to believe in God and hopefully Jesus. That's where we're at. And as a result, I don't think it's going to work well for someone to come out and just say, hey, this God crap, I don't care for it, but I'll tell you what, I do believe in the Constitution of the United States. I think that person is going to have some problems. Although I do think we have some people who have been able to get by without necessarily raising the question or the issue. Bernie Sanders, when he spoke at Liberty University, said we don't agree on many of these issues and we don't see eye to eye. He did not say where he is coming from, though, but he did say that we're not seeing eye to eye.
Right. It was very important to me to understand where Professor Mando was coming from. He's this, imam, and he came actually to the studio several times and did a show with me. And in talking with him, I would be very comfortable in this gentleman being, president of these United States. He's a brilliant economist. He really has, a good understanding of his theology. He's not an extremist at all. I think that he would probably be the person who could make peace with people in the Middle East because he understands it. And so there are many plus points, that is, to a Muslim being in the context of being commander-in-chief, in my opinion. That is, after talking to Professor Mando. However, there are other people outside of the context of who he is, because he keeps speaking about these radicals, that are in the Muslim quote unquote faith, who really advocate things that are against our Constitution, and this is obvious, and
Well,
it seems, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. I'm certainly one who doesn't mind pushing back on the language of the Constitution, because I think it's a document that needs to be improved. My opinion.
Obama, he smokes, he drinks beer, he does a lot of things that make him a very bad Muslim. And there are people in this country who are afraid. They really think that this guy is really someone who has infiltrated our government and wants to make us all Muslims. I can't imagine. If this is the way they're treating Obama,
All right.
without regard to the skills that Professor Mondo might have, I don't think these people are going to like him, and that's that's where we're at. And as a result, I don't think we're going to have very many leaders who at least would be openly in opposition to faith and belief in a Christian agenda. That's at least that's how I wish. Hey, I'm all set to be delightfully surprised at that. And part of this is that if we're a true democracy, and we're not, but if we were a true democracy, and if we have people like that among us, then they're as entitled to this as anybody else.
Yes.
That's so there's I don't want to go so far as to say, well, let's not have any of those kind of people around anymore. Look, it's just this is a process. It's a democratic process.
Certainly.
When it can be. And
okay, I'm not suggesting that we should not have people running for office who believe X, Y, and Z. That's fine with me. My point is, when someone, let's say that they hold a particular theological position and no one knows about it. This could be dangerous. It's like David Koresh. I mean, what if he ran for office and we didn't know, his theological
Or
position.
what if we had a person who was a Quaker run for office, only to find out after he's in office, he's a conscientious objector. He would never order a military strike.
Right.
As anti-violent as I am, I'm not so sure it's a good idea to let people who could be our enemies know, oh, we won't do anything.
Hello.
I as much as I really believe there are far better solutions almost always, there's something about being willing to fight if you have to that goes a long way to not having to, and so I would think a person who came from a faith where they were truly committed to nonviolence, that could be touchy. Unfortunately, given the nature of the world, I'm all for nonviolence, but I'm not so nonviolent that I want to kid myself that that we live in the kind of a world where you can really make that work all the time as much as you might want it to, unfortunately.
Like Ryan said, or asked, he said, was it controversial when JFK ran for president as, a Catholic?
Yes, it was.
It was very controversial. But my point is, I don't want to know if a person is a Muslim or not. I want to know what that person's belief sets are.
Right.
It's important to me because, in a sense, I think that what you believe is, in a sense, what you're going to do. In other words, it's going to be a working premise for how you act, and it may give us a view as to your wisdom in this and that, and that's my point. And I feel like as a voter, I would like to be more filled in as to what a person actually believes, and that would help me to make a better a choice, or that is to whom I might vote for.
Yes. Now there are some beliefs that I don't think make any difference.
Certainly.
Let me give you an example of one. What if there's somebody who believes that evolution is a valid biological dynamic, but believes that God created the heaven and the earth maybe 50,000 years ago and created it then, not brand new, but as if it had been evolving and going on for billions of years, so that had it actually been around, then all of that evolutionary past would have been its past. It just wasn't there. It just kind of magically appeared 50,000 years ago, but in such a state as if it had been working its way there for the last, 13 billion years. I don't see how that kind of a belief is going to be a problem. And in fact, he might be right. Who knows? I don't, to me, that kind of thinking outside of the box might even be attractive. I don't know. But that doesn't strike me as one of those beliefs that would amount to a hill of beans in terms of that. It's just a lot of people might not like it. A lot of people, atheists probably wouldn't like it. And a lot of theists who want that 5,000 year old earth wouldn't like it either. But, it wouldn't make any difference, But yeah, I want to know some of those things. But don't you think that some of those things would also be obvious, perhaps, in some of the other kinds of decisions they have made, if they have some sort of public record? I tell you one thing that I thought was unwise about Obama is we had a guy running for president who had a very short public life. We didn't really have enough trajectory on this guy. I don't think he is proved to have been dangerous as a result, or as dangerous as some of his opponents would like us to believe he is. But I really think that when you're voting for somebody for president, it's probably better to have somebody who's been around a while so that we have a sense of just who that guy is, who that girl is, whatever, So that strikes me as being, I mean, when you look at our Constitution, many offices are not requiring that much. The office of president requires an older age than any other office, that has an age limit to it. For that part of the reason, we want somebody with some maturity, experience, years, a track record.
When it comes to someone running for president, I really don't care whether they are a Muslim or a Catholic or whatever. It doesn't matter to me, but it does matter to me. That is what their worldview is.
Yeah.
And so, in a sense, I would like to know in particular, their worldview. I would like to be a little bit more informed because I would want to know, where would they lead this country? And so that's what I'm talking about here tonight. And possibly I'm way out of line, but I would rather be honest about how I feel about things. A question or a comment was posed earlier. If we do elect a Mormon as president, I want to know how strong their magical, I would want to know how strong their magical underwear are. Wow, that's
yes. A lot of people don't know about that, but yes, many these Mormons believe they wear a particular underwear, and
And I've met some, debated a few, who thought that this actually worked. In fact, they had testimonies of this and that, about how the underwear worked. Let's move on. Daryl, did you get to watch the debate last night?
I did not. Wanted to, but I didn't get a chance to, unfortunately. So I would like to hear your take on it and kind of get filled in on it a little, though.
I thought the debate went well, and my opinion is just short and sweet. I think that Anderson Cooper was the one who won the debate for everyone, in that he was the kind of moderator who asked brilliant questions, and he was quick to do follow-ups. He was quick to really push these candidates to give more substance. And when you compare what he did as opposed to the Fox moderators, wow, what a different world we were looking at last night. What are your thoughts, Bob?
Yeah, I was impressed with Anderson Cooper. I thought he now I suspect he's a Democrat. So I suspect that there's a sense in which he's kind of on their side. But he did ask, nonetheless, a couple of tough questions, put some people in places that could be a tough spot, but in a way where he really kind of also allowed them to kind of clear the air about some of those tough spots. And yet as you say, he was often, quick to respond with a follow-up question that was basically a way of saying, okay, now come on, don't spoon feed me nonsense here. What I'm really asking and what I really want to know is, and he did that. I thought he did it really well. I got to be honest with you. There was a guy there, Bernie Sanders. I knew who he was, and there was this young lady there, Hillary Clinton, and I knew who she was, but I had not much of a good idea about who those other people were there. Why were they there? No, I mean, I didn't even know who was in the lineup of potential Democrats running for office. So this is the first time I'd actually seen them or heard them have anything to say. I just haven't been paying that close attention to it. But I thought that that Anderson did kind of ask questions of them quite a bit, and their name came up quite a bit. And one of them even, I thought, it wasn't worth mentioning or complaining about. He says, well, I don't get a chance to speak much because if I can't respond, if somebody doesn't say something bad about me, then I'm not going to get a chance to say much at all. But, so definitely this debate centered around Sanders and Clinton. But I thought they did a good job of responding in a positive light from a Democrat standpoint. And they were particularly congenial. They were not really trying to badmouth each other. They did politely disagree on some things. And I thought it was interesting the way that Bernie Sanders came to the rescue, as it were, and saying, enough of this nonsense about the emails.
These damn emails. Well, I don't think that he was able to make his point, and here's why. I think what he was saying, enough about these damn emails in this kind of context, and I think he failed to make his point, and yet I think that he won some plus points by making that statement. I think that he wanted to continue and make the point, wow, Hillary, this is what you've done. You've allowed this email thing to distract everyone, including yourself. Is that what you're going to do as president? Allow something so insignificant?
Yes,
and I think that's what he was trying to say, but I think that
now
he
that's
failed to
definitely
make his point. And I think he was trying to go for the pin there. But he's such a
definitely
respectful
fly.
individual.
Very, very good.
Yeah.
Yes. But at the same time, also trying to redirect the future discussion into something a little bit more substantive. I mean, I'll tell you what, when I heard about the email thing, that bothered me. I still, I very much dislike what happened with the email. But you know what? My goodness, if we can be all bothered about those emails, we've got a number of luxurious opportunities to be pissed off, because as egregious as that can be to subject emails of the State Department to a private server, I think that some of the issues we're facing are far bigger than that we really need to focus there. And if we could take care of those bigger issues, I don't think we'd be having some of those smaller issues like the email.
But, the email question, and I'm going to leave this one alone after I make this comment. If I would have been Anderson Cooper, I would have asked a question like this. Yeah, it's true that the Republicans are the one making a big deal out of it. But the question would be, if there is anything to this at all, why didn't any of the Democrats even, question this? And sometimes it's like, if you're a Democrat, just about everything that you do goes unquestioned. The same thing is true when you're a Republican. You can get away with things that typically you wouldn't get away with, and so you have both parties questioning this because I'm a Democrat. The Republicans are going to question me if I'm a Democrat. Blah 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 blah, and so my point is, wow, is this really just a Republican critique? Is this just something that we should place
It shouldn't
in
be,
question?
right? It would have been okay had Bernie said something like this. Look, enough of the email crap. Now, granted, it was wrong. It wasn't a good idea. And I think it should count against you. But the truth is, there are issues far more important than this that we need to be talking about. If he'd said something like that, that would have at least acknowledged it. I part of what you're saying is, I wish that people on both sides of the aisle could be a little more frank and honest about the fact that there's been a few faux pas. They haven't always done it right, and let's be honest about it instead of constantly defending it. As if, oh no, none of the complaints about us can possibly be legit. We're Democrats.
I just found out that Umar, he actually wears his magic underwear when he watches this show, and so that's probably good.
Yeah.
It makes him safe.
Well, I had this feeling that somebody was wearing their magic underwear when one of the camera angles at you put this beautiful gold spot near your forehead.
Oh. Yeah, we have bad camera angles tonight.
It was dynamic. It had there was a certain magic to it, and it said to me, yes, someone's wearing very powerful underwear. But
That's good. That's good. Um,
there's some things we want to change in this country. I
Sure.
don't know what party can do it, and I'll tell you what, I'm a bit jaded. I'm not so sure that we have a government that's really being run by either party. I think that both parties are trying to get a few things done, trying to make a few statements, but I think that they're way too beholden to too many other situations. And I'll be honest with you, although Bernie Sanders does talk about that a great deal, I don't know how free he is, but perhaps the fact that he can talk about it, he's a little freer than the others. But we've got a lot of things going on in this country where we are not represented. Who we the people are, and not that we the people even have the best ideas. I don't know that we do, but you know what? Every immature little child has the right to grow up, and a democratic country has the right to be making decisions that represent them as a democratic country, that where they even get to make mistakes and say, oh, okay, well, we did try that and that didn't work the way we'd hoped it would, so let's try something else. We have the right to make mistakes, but if we're going to be a democracy, we really have to have a government that is, more than anything else, responsive to the constituency of voters.
One of the things that I do like about Bernie Sanders, he seems to be the only one who is truly attempting to deal with the kind of substance that would deal with equality across the board, especially in the context of economy and education. And so, I can appreciate what he attempted to do last night. He attempted to put on the table the kind of substance that would really indicate that we need to change quite a bit.
Yeah.
Hillary seemed to be one who was content in saying, listen, guys, you want to be comfortable? You know what Obama's doing? I'm just going to move us a little bit past this and make some improvements, and that's about it. And so, in a sense, she was playing it safe, and she got the win there. But when it comes to someone who said, wow, we really need to push back on these billionaires, we've had this, and I'm paraphrasing, we've had this pyramid of capitalism for so long. You have a handful of people that get to the top, and damn it, the rest of us are on the bottom. We've got to change this. What are your thoughts on this, Daryl? I mean, do you see capitalism as it is today? Is it really working for everyone? I mean, we have a handful of people who are billionaires, and according to the stats, wow, I think it's less than 1% that own, I think, more than 90% of Americans.
Well, my response,
Something
from
like
what I
that.
understand, to say it this way puts a little emphasis on it. It would be hell no. I think it's a long way from being. I won't say it's unfair. It's just a system that to me has proven that it's ineffective in bringing equality when it comes to how people do, in the economy. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, most are at the bottom and a handful at the top.
Daryl, you might have liked it had you seen it when Anderson Cooper, and I'm curious to find out. I don't know that I ever could, but I was curious about it, that he mentions to Hillary that she is one of the 1%. How does she deal with it? Now, when he said that, I was thinking, bold move.
Oh, yeah.
What was your purpose in mentioning that, other than just asking the question? Was there something behind it? Because that struck me as being a hidden Bernie Sanders push.
I think it was, but yet at the same time, it's like let's be a little bit more open about where you are on this scale. That is economically. I mean, Hillary, you're speaking from the 1%, and the rest of these people are not. And so, what's going on here? I mean, certainly you don't mind staying up there, do you? And the rest of these people are paying for, X, Y, and Z. And so, it's an interesting contest. However, we saw a little bit of fire from Bernie Sanders and also some fire from Hillary Clinton. And yet at the same time, we had quite a bit of fire in the Republican debate, but it was a different kind of fire. What are your thoughts on this, guys?
Well, I thought that the fire from the Republicans was huge.
Huge.
China.
It was huge.
Hello, China.
Now, with the fire that came from the Democrats, I felt that Bernie had only a handful of talking points. Now, he did from time to time bring out different data, mentioning, the 51% of black youths who are unemployed, 30 some odd percent of Hispanic youth. He only mentioned that data, I think, once or twice. He mentioned a few other pieces of data, but he had these strong talking points that he mentioned over and over and over and over again. It got to be a bit drony. I was wondering, do you have anything else, Bernie? Whereas I thought that Hillary seemed to get animated uniquely about each of the issues that came up when she did bring out that fire. And so I got the impression that there was a greater variation in color of the fire that came from Hillary than what came from Bernie.
Yeah, that's true. However, it appeared as if she had memorized most of her talking points, and so
Sure
it,
they
it
all
didn't
have, yeah.
seem it didn't seem off the cuff. It seemed very prepped, and,
Well,
and she was
yeah,
prepped.
when you're a politician, though, you make so many appearances.
Right.
It's almost unavoidable to get into the rut of a couple of phrases, maybe even a couple of paragraphs,
That's true.
because you make so many.
That's true.
So yeah, although it's good if you can get fresh, don't can it, peel it.
Well, being as I didn't see the debate, did anyone talk about answers or what they would do to fix the problems?
Yeah. Hillary mentioned that she had a plan.
A plan?
And
Oh, good. A good one or just a bad one?
Yeah, a plan that was going to solve certain problems and address certain issues. And that's why her plan would do that. But, to be honest with you, a lot of people always ask this question. I want to hear more substance. Well, you know what? We all do. But you know why you're not going to hear it? Because the moment a politician comes out with substance, that's the moment when we're going to discover how divergent we really are in this country. And the vast majority of people, when they hear exactly what your plan is, are going to say, no, I don't want something like that, but not that. And so the more specific you are, the more likely it is you're going to end up just alienating a bunch of people who are in general for you, but not specifically for that. And the answers to our problems are going to be answers that are going to turn the tables on people who don't want those tables turned. And the moment they realize that you have them in your sights as you're about ready to upset those tables, they're going to work against you. That's why you're not going to hear those specifics. You're not going to hear them, not because these politicians are too dishonest to give it to you. We're too dishonest to hear it.
So you're saying that an Elizabeth Warren is a bit too articulate concerning the economy, and she would give us too much.
She might. I think she might. She would not. She's not running. And the truth is, I think we do need people who are far more articulate who aren't running. People who are actually propelling a movement. Because when it comes down to it, I don't think the politicians make that big of a difference. I think that they can make a little bit of a difference, but for the most part, they're beholden to the people who are going to pay the bill to make sure they can get reelected. And movements, however, create an inertia that a politician has a hard time ignoring. Nixon, for example, was responsible for seeing the passage of a great number of bills that would not have fit in well with his particular political theories. But there was such a powerful social movement going on at the time during Nixon's presidency that there were a whole mess of civil rights and various other kinds of progressive issues that went forward even during his day because he had to. In fact, when you stop to think about it, how did women get the right to vote? The only way women got a right to vote was when there were enough men around who would vote for women to have the right to vote. And why did they do that? I really don't think it's because, well, now that we think about it, how terribly fair this would be. No, I think a lot of them realized that if they ever wanted to have sex again, no, there was a movement about that was gaining energy, and the general population was filled with men and women who were saying, this is crazy. We gotta give women the vote. And so they had to, and I think that's what affects government more. So the truth is, Bernie, no matter what he really wants to do, is not going to be able to do it unless there's a movement of people who are really getting behind something specific. That's one of the things that was wrong with Obamacare. A lot of people who even wanted some sort of thing like that, that's not what they want. They didn't want that. They wanted a universal single payer, but there wasn't a big enough movement in the country to be able to demand that. And we won't have a single payer system until there is a movement in this country that says, enough of the nonsense, get rid of this. We're going to this. Come on, let's do it. And when the movement is there, there's not a politician in sight, be he Democrat or Republican, who can say no to it.
When I listen to Hillary Clinton, and I may be wrong in my judgment here, but I don't think that she's competent in that. I don't think that she knows how to address, namely, the economy. Whereas in Elizabeth Warren, I think that she is more than competent. In fact, I think that she could give Bernie Sanders a run for his money when it comes to really delving into the considerations that need to be talked about.
If Bernie wins, she might be on his cabinet.
I beg your pardon?
If Bernie wins, she might end up on his cabinet.
That's true. But my point is, should the president be competent in this particular area? I'm of the opinion that we do need someone competent in this area, and I don't think that Hillary is. However, she has rehearsed many talking points that make her sound like she knows what she's talking about. But she's made too many faux pas, on the trail concerning this. That's why I don't think that she knows what she's talking about when it comes to the economy. But those are just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I let me push back a little bit on that. I don't think it's possible for a president to be competent in all the areas that are really going to be important to their administration.
I don't disagree with that.
So what I think is necessary is they need to be sufficiently humble and open to constructing a great cabinet of people they can truly listen to, and invite people into their cabinet that can actually even push back. I'm waiting. We've had it a couple of times, a cabinet filled with people from the other party.
Yeah, but my point, Bob, is this. Yeah. If you are going to say we are going to have change, whatever change that you're talking about, you're going to have to be competent to that question. And so if you're going to change the economy dynamically like Bernie Sanders wants to, I don't think that a Hillary Clinton can do it. It's going to take at least a Bernie Sanders with the backing of an Elizabeth Warren to do that. I don't think that an incompetent president can say, oh, we're going to change this and I'm going to leave it to the guys who know what they're doing. I don't think change will come that way because that person has to sell it. And the seller of the philosophy, that philosophical paradigm that changes, that person needs to know what they're talking about.
Hedge funds are currently a legal practice in this country. I don't like them. But and Hillary and Bill were investigated for their Whitewater dealings, and no wrongdoing was found. And it was only in the process of that we brought up the matter of that dress. But And then Clinton lied. But I think that one of the things that I don't know how the Whitewater deals worked, but they were probably quite legal. But I think that some of the changes we're going to have to make are going to be the kind of changes that would no longer allow certain people who have done things that were quite legal, they would no longer be doable. And I'm not so sure that the people who've been doing those things are the people to change it.
Right. One of the things that I'm thankful about, and this is going to sound weird, I'm thankful that Huckabee at least exposes what he thinks to be true concerning theology on the trail. That's why I would never vote for the guy.
Yes. Yeah. He's helped me settle that question. Yes.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I would rather these guys be a little bit more transparent. I think, in a sense, when we dodge the questions in terms of what we think to be true concerning religion and all of that, I think that, I don't know, I can't buy into that. I do understand that there are private areas in our lives that we need to be able to withhold. But when it comes to certain things that would, maybe shape what we would do as president, I think that the voters need to know. That's just my opinion.
I agree with you. And yet, you want to know these things. And part of the reason that you have a concern and the way you would feel about it has to do with where you are on those particular issues.
Exactly.
And if somebody were to come out with some of those answers in a way that you felt comfortable with, do you think that there's enough people in this country who would also feel comfortable with it, that
No.
they could be electable?
No, not
Yeah.
not yet. I mean, I feel like politicians, and I have to be honest with you, I think Hillary Clinton is actually selling a philosophy that is
Yeah.
of politics that's about 30 years behind us.
I agree.
And so
by the
Bernie
way,
Sanders is trying to
make
say, let's catch up. Let's catch up. Hey, listen, guys. We have economists who are saying this and that. Why can't we participate in the real world? Why can't we look at templates elsewhere and let's enjoy life? That's where we need to be. But too many people are afraid. And Hillary is saying, no, I'm going to play it safe. Remember, 50 years ago, it was safe. 90 years ago, it was safer. And they play along like that. And I'm saying that if you can't keep in step with real-time change, wow,
Yeah.
you've got problems. And this is
is
why,
why-
and I agree with this individual who just said Huckabee is truly a madman. I agree, but at least he exposed that he was a madman when he
Yeah.
started getting up there saying,
my
"Look
man.
at here,
Hope for you to see. There, yeah, he let it out.
let me play my bass guitar."
Yeah. Now,
And old Kim's
what we were
hand
just
up in
talking
the
about
air.
is one of the reasons why I say a movement makes changes, because if the changes that are needed are the kind of changes that if somebody running for office would be specific about, would also disturb so many people that the person couldn't get elected. This is why we need to push a movement that will then cause the politicians to respond. Now, remember, the politicians are responding to the things that move them. And currently, lobbyists and large donors are the ones that are moving them the most. That's what we're competing with. And I think we need to find ways of, first of all, getting rid of Citizens United, and do it legally through due process. But we really need to focus, I think, on making these movements happen, where the movement becomes, as it were, one of the advisors to the president.
I so agree. Question, the gun issue came up, and it seems like, the debate here is about, oh, we need more gun laws, and that's about as far as it goes. We need to put more controls, and then, our problems will be somewhat solved. And I guess I'm looking for, some president who will step up to the plate and say, hey, listen, I've got these scientists over here and they're looking into this and that, and this is what their findings are. And so, why can't we look at science and what they're suggesting? And yes, we do need some controls without question, but at the same time, we need mental health programs. We need mental health workers. We're always trying to satisfy everything with our law enforcement officers. Why isn't there a big cry for more of a mental health push in terms of trying to deal with the X, Y's, and Z's of all of this stuff instead of it's always about the NRA, and I'm not an advocate of the NRA, by the way, but it seems like it always comes down to, well, we have the NRA, the NRA.
One of the somebody was pushing back on that the other day. I can't remember who it was, but they're saying, "Don't give me the mental health line. Most of the people who've been these mass shooters weren't people who've been diagnosed with mental health problems." Oh, come on. Come on. Now, it may be true that they haven't been to see a therapist or a social worker or a psychiatrist or a psychologist who said, "I need to give you this diagnosis. You are a paranoid," or you're. No, that may be true that they haven't had that. But I'll tell you what, there is something going on inside of somebody where it makes sense to them to take a bunch of bullets and a bunch of guns and go and shoot a bunch of people up. There's something going on inside of them, and usually the root of it has to do with an enragement of humiliation that has been going on that leads back to bullying and dismissing and having a person come up and where they feel powerless against a world that, as they see it, is terribly unfair. And I would have to agree with them in many, many ways. But we have a culture that just doesn't give a damn about the people who are suffering and who seem to, there's just a great deal of humiliation that these people are working against, that maybe even so private, because we're so busy doing what we're doing, achieving what we're achieving, that we're not paying attention to how so many people are socially losing the gains of this life. And these are the people who explode. Now, maybe they didn't get that diagnosis, but as far as I can tell, there is sufficient reason to believe that even though they hadn't gotten the diagnosis and hadn't gotten under the care of some sort of a mental health worker, the people who are involved in these mass shootings have some serious problems.
The thing that really rubs me the wrong way about these politicians when it comes to the gun issues, these politicians are not even quoting, that is, people who are investigating this stuff, people who are doing the science. For instance, if we have a lot of cognitive scientists that are brilliant, and we do, and we have a lot of people who can actually wrap their mind around the problems here and what needs to be done, why are our politicians not quoting them instead of pretending like they have the answer?
I don't know. I wish I did know. For example, when it comes to even the gun issue, I don't trust the right or the left on this. I think they're both very, very dangerous. And I think that, just wanting to make sure that we protect absolutely our right to grab a hold of guns.
Exactly.
Irresponsible. And on the other end, the silly notion that if we somehow remove a certain number of guns, that we're going to create a safe environment, that's nonsense. I'm a college professor. I am not allowed to pack a gun in class, and I don't know that I'd want to either. But I'll tell you what, I am not happy with the fact that I work in a gun-free zone, because I know that and it's happened at other colleges, there's no reason to think that it couldn't happen at my college. Somebody comes into my classroom and we're dead. We have nothing that we can do about it. And the police aren't going to get there in time. It's going to happen. And I'm bothered by the fact that, since these gun-free zones have been going into effect, 90 some odd percent of these mass shootings take place in gun-free zones. You know, I, so I'm not really happy with what the right or the left is doing with this. And I think that we need to somehow diffuse the psychic energy that is propelling this kind of behavior. And yeah, I do think we need reasonable gun laws. I think we need to make sure that people who own guns are held highly responsible, need to be trained for them. I mean, you got to pass a driver's test to have a driver's license. I would be all for learner's permits for certain weapons, and people have to demonstrate that they are competent with that weapon before they're licensed to carry or whatever. I don't know, but I'd be, and that they're also responsible for wherever the whereabouts of that weapon is. I would be for stronger laws in that regard, but I'm not for these laws that make it like, oh, we want to make sure that we have fewer of them around. Oh, I wish we could do that, but that's a fantasy.
True. I agree with you. Neither party is addressing the issue. And by the way, if I were a politician and the debate were how do we do heart surgery, I would say, I'm not qualified to say. In fact, this is what I'm going to do as president. And during the debate, I brought some guys that are actually trained in that area, and they're going to address that issue for me because I can't do that. And I think that's the kind of politician that we need, a politician who says, I don't know, but I do know someone who does know. And when it comes to healthcare issues, listen, I'm not qualified to speak. I'm going to bring in the psychiatrist. I'm going to bring in these people who can actually speak efficiently concerning this, because the debate that's going on in politics, it's as if these politicians have to read, the teasing points of this and that, and that's what's going on. And by the way, I think that we're experiencing some audio noise. And so, Bob, if you would talk just for a moment, we're going to check this out.
Basically, what you're saying is we need a portfolio of women and men to address some of these issues, and we are faced with so many issues that I really think that we need to start thinking more scientifically, more experimentally, to where we recognize we don't have these answers. And I've been glad to hear that even with the gun issue, more people even on the news have been saying, this is insane. And I got to tell you, I'm at the end of thinking that I know what we need to do about it. I don't know what we need to do about it, but I think that we need to really be open to various experimentations, various different considerations. And one thing is for sure, whatever the answer is, it is something that doesn't make sense to us, because if it were something that made sense to us, we'd be doing it already. The fact that we're not doing it already is, to me, the first clue that whatever the real answer is to this issue, it's something that if we were to hear it now, we'd probably go, no, not that. So I think that it's going to have to be something that we need to somehow go through a process of experimenting with, determining, studying, validating, and then saying, okay, let's give this a reasonable try and see what happens.
I agree with you. We are having audio problems, and I do appreciate our audience. They're so patient during this. Google and YouTube, there is a conflict going on, and we're trying to figure this out. And so, the guys
That's
in
a
the
shame.
back
I'm
are trying to
perfectly fine
to do this. But you're making some excellent points. We can actually screen people thoroughly and do that, but yet at the end of the day, we will still have the problem, and someone needs to say, wow, I need someone who can speak efficiently to this. And so I wish debates, that is political debates, were made with let's say a presidential candidate that brought several people who could speak efficiently concerning this and that. I don't think that should be embarrassing. I think that would actually demonstrate that a person is being intellectually honest, that is to the people. Because if you're going to pretend like you're a know-it-all and you're great in all of these disciplines, that's just, nonsense. And I'm getting tired of the politicians who want to pretend as if they know. So many of our politicians have no clue as to what even Wall Street is and how it works. And yet they act like they're the final authority on it all. And when it comes to these mental health issues, it's like they have all the answers. They don't even know first base, that is, in the context of what's truly happening. And I'm really sick and tired of these politicians pretending to be something that they're not.
Let me ask you another question. I'm not trying to artificially change the topic. I'm trying to contrast the topic.
Right.
How many people die every year from drunk drivers? We're experiencing far greater a mass killing in this country through drunk drivers than we are through mass shooters. Now, the mass shooting is understandably, outrageously traumatic. It is just an extremely frightening, very arbitrary thing. But we have become desensitized to drunk driving deaths, all because they're kind of more evenly spread out. Usually a drunk driver only kills 2 or 3 people at a time, usually just one person at a time. And it doesn't always happen in your neighborhood, and it happens in so many places so often that we just can't possibly report them all. And as a result, we're just kind of going on our merry way. And although many people feel like, well, we got to do something about guns, well, I think drunk driving is a bigger problem. Killing more people, destroying more families, ruining more breadwinners, stealing us from more moms and more kids. And yet, because of the way the statistics work, we're nowhere near as motivated to really address that issue.
I agree with you. Daryl, jump into the conversation. What are your thoughts concerning this gun situation? I mean, we're having so much violence here in America with guns. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to kind of get extreme on you here. I'll be the first one to admit I'm somewhat of an idealist. That may be an understatement. It seems to me like, we're in a place in history as a race, that is the human race, that it would be nice to think that, that the reality actually be less dependency on guns and violence as a solution to our problems. But instead, we're still training constantly. Every nation in the world, I suppose, is training men to be proficient with guns to kill one another with. And, I can't help but wonder, I realize there's a lot of complexities involved in what happens when someone just, as far as I'm concerned, loses it and takes some guns into a school and just starts killing people they don't know. But that type of action has been going on since day one. And, it would be nice to address this on a larger scale. Let's look at us as human beings. How dependent are we on guns and their ability to kill other people? And I'm just wondering if a lot of these people that go nuts and do these things, maybe they should have been in the military. I don't know. At least their concentration maybe would have been in the right direction. They would just be killing the enemy and not women and children or innocent people who didn't do anything to them, that weren't shooting back at them.
Yeah. Going back to the drunk driving thing, I was just looking at some statistics here. 30 people, just shy of 30 people die every day.
Good.
Drunk drivers in the United States. If we had a mass shooting that killed about 30 people every day for a solid month, we would be so sick of this. we would be, just literally torn apart at just the horrific reality of it. And yet, you know, so putting it in I think that in a sense we're going after is it wise for us to go after the dramatic issues rather than the real ones?
But it's similar to the drug issue, and I don't even know what the statistics are, but I would think that they would be high. That is, how many people die of drug overdose, yada yada yada. But my point is, so many people who have a drug addiction, they are in a sense afraid, that is, to get help. When a person is an addict, they don't want to become a criminal, and we have criminalized people. That is, for this illness. Drug addiction is an illness. This is not something that I'm just making up. You can look at the evidence that has been presented so many times. This is an illness, and yet we are criminalizing people who have an illness. And I guess my point is, when are we going to contemplate, what we did with alcohol? It used to be illegal, and therefore we had all of these, alcohol wars, and we didn't win that one. But the day that we made it legal to buy alcohol, we did away with most of the violence that came along with all of the people running alcohol. And the same thing could be true concerning drugs. If drugs were legal, people had access to drugs in a legal way, at least the drug users would get clean drugs, number one. And number two, they would be getting drugs from people who understand what drugs do. And number three, when they actually hit the wall, they might get help quicker than not. And that might present a better paradigm. What are your thoughts on that?
Now, certainly it's an issue, but it's something that seems to me to be almost 100% a human approach to problems. We've got this problem. Let's stop having this problem. Let's do this. And then we do it, and it makes the problem worse. And that's because we're always going after the squeaky wheel instead of the root of the problem.
Exactly.
We're really going after the cosmetics. We're trying to make the problem look better. We're even doing the same thing in education. The No Child Left Behind and the standards that are coming out, the Common Core, and the constant testing that's going on. This isn't improving education. This is really trying to improve the way that we test and determine how well we're doing. And it's not improving education. In fact, some of the kids, I got to tell you, as a professor, coming to me less educated, less able to write, less able to think for themselves, no critical thinking skills very often. It's not getting better, and that's because we try to solve problems by thinking, oh, I've got an idea that all that requires is just our looking at the problem and going, oh, well, it's obvious. This is what you do. If problems were that easy to solve, we wouldn't be having them in the first place. Einstein even said, I thought it was beautiful. He said, you can't solve the problems you're having by using the same kind of thinking you had when you created them. And, so I really think that in many ways, the drug issue, serious problem, the knee-jerk reaction made it worse.
Exactly. Hey, we're out of time. Let's heat it up for about 2 minutes. What are your best thoughts here tonight, Daryl? Come on, heat the thing up.
Oh, lots of issues, lots of answers. It's not going to happen overnight, but brainstorming like this, I think would be good on every level. I wish that we had both groups that debated, the Republican group and the Democratic group, on our show tonight, and see what they could do with some of the things that Bob has said, some of the things that you've said, Dr. Jones, and possibly even some of the crazy things I've said. And this is what they need. They need to interact with real people, and maybe that would make a difference.
Okay, Bob, here's the challenge. What do you think that the politicians in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party would think about Theism 2.0? I'm talking about Theism 2.0 in this context. It's a commitment to a process, not a conclusion.
What do I think that they would feel about this? I have no idea. I hope they like it, but I have a feeling that some of them wanted to know how the voters are going to feel about it before they'd even say.
What do you think they would think about Humanism 2.0? Because, we need to raise the bar on humanity.
Yeah.
That is, in where we're going, what we're doing together. We need a better social dynamic. Sociologically speaking, we need help. Psychologically speaking, we need help. And so we've got to have Humanism 2.0. And I'm hoping that our viewers will, come together with us and help us think outside of the box of how to put something together that's meaningful for us all. And so give your final thoughts and let's end this show.
Okay, let me throw one more statistics out there to kind of just throw contrast to what we're talking about. We talk about mass shooting. We also talked about how just shy of 30 people die every day from drunk drivers. In this country, just shy of 1,100 people die every day because a doctor made a mistake.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. And that's a statistic that is even hard to pay attention to because even the Center for Disease Control doesn't keep track of that data. That was a piece of data that just was recently released by the Harvard Medical Division, and these statistics are just strange. We have some serious problems that are deeper than just the things that need a few tweaking. We really need to think about what we're doing and whether or not this is really working. And I think it's going to take a lot of movements to make it happen. Instead of sitting around waiting for our politicians to get around and solve these problems, I think we need to kind of take the bull by the horns and as a people, wake up, educate ourselves, become aware of what's really going on, think about it. Don't use your knee-jerk reaction. Realize that these solutions are going to have to be something other than what we've been thinking of yet. And consider them. It doesn't mean that we can't ever go back to old ideas, but we just need to be open to thinking anew and afresh. Let's do that. Let's move as people and see if we can have some influence on our elected leaders so that so they can be smarter because of us than they really were when they got elected.
That's awesome. I enjoyed that. By the way, it's Ray Comfort, Eric Hovind, and the rest of the gang. They keep saying the stats are thousands upon thousands of people are dying every day, dying and plunging into hell. I'm simply saying that's not true. So enjoy your night tonight and have a good drink. Good night.